In the sweeping grasslands of Kenya, once roamed an old male lion, a figure etched in the very history of the pride, a majestic ruler for a decade strong. For 10 years, his powerful presence had guided his kin through the relentless challenges of the savannah, his fierce gaze and formidable roar a shield against any who dared encroach upon their territory. His thick, flowing mane, the color of sun-baked earth, and his sharp, knowing eyes had once been enough to make even the most audacious predators give him a wide berth. But time, an unyielding force, had begun to take its toll. The once vibrant energy of the male lion began to wane, his powerful frame growing visibly thin, a stark contrast to the robust king he once was. The relentless competition for dominance within the pride, the constant push and pull of younger, stronger males, vying for leadership, had finally caught up to him. Overthrown by a younger lion, full of youthful vigor, he quietly, with a dignity that spoke volumes of his past reign, relinquished his position and left the familiar embrace of his pride. With a solitary pride that only a seasoned ruler could possess, he chose to live alone, a silent sentinel on the vast expanse of the grasslands that had once been his kingdom. Day after day, he wandered under the immense African sky, driven by the primal need to find sustenance, his aging body struggling against the harsh whims of the weather. The ever-present pack of hyenas, scavengers of the savannah, often materialized. In his wake, their shadowy figures following closely behind, patiently awaiting any sign of weakness, any opportunity to seize. Not stopping there, the more elusive leopards, sleek and cunning, always watched him from a distance, their sharp eyes assessing his deteriorating condition, patiently waiting for a vulnerable moment. On the parched, cracked earth of the dry field, the scorching sun beat down with relentless intensity, sapping the old lion's remaining strength. Each step became a monumental effort, his weary body yearning for the cool respite of a shady tree. The oppressive heat made his breathing grow heavier and more labored, his once powerful legs now trembling with exhaustion. The scars he had earned, in countless battles, badges of honor in his prime, now burned with a dull ache under the harsh, unforgiving sun. Then, through the shimmering heat haze, a sight that tightened his already tense muscles, 3 leopards, their lithe bodies resting, in the rare shade offered by a solitary tree. The old lion no longer possessed the strength for a confrontation, the fiery energy of his youth, a distant memory, yet his instinct to survive, to endure, still flickered within him, urging him to move forward, however slowly. The 3 adult leopards, their senses sharp, quickly detected the approach of the weakened old king. In an instant they rose, their bodies coiled with a predatory hostility, their movements fluid as they surrounded the aging lion, cutting off any hope of escape. A low, guttural growl rumbled in the old lion's chest, a sound born of despair and a lifetime of dominance, as if by sheer force of will he could still chase away these brazen interlopers. But the leopards, their eyes gleaming with the cold calculation of the predator, recognized his exhausted state, the lack of true power behind his defiant sound. They showed no respect for the legend that stood before them. With terrifying speed, a ferocious leopard lunged forward, its sharp teeth sinking into the old lion's front leg. A searing pain shot through him and blood gushed out, staining the once sturdy fur of his leg a shocking crimson. The lion roared in agony, the sound raw and primal, tearing through the quiet stillness of the savannah. Driven by instinct and the searing pain, he summoned the last vestiges of his strength to fight back, a desperate, flailing resistance. This sudden, unexpected burst of defiance startled the 3 leopards, momentarily throwing them off their attack, and they scattered, melting back into the sparse vegetation. Left alone once more, the old lion collapsed onto the unforgiving ground, the wound on his leg throbbing with excruciating pain. He dragged his heavy body, inch by agonizing inch, seeking the meager shade offered by a small corner beneath the dry, brittle grass. The bite on his leg continued to bleed relentlessly, his precious strength slowly ebbing away with each drop. Day after day the wound swelled, the torn flesh showing grim signs of necrosis, the tissue darkening and decaying. The pain intensified, morphing into a constant, numbing, throbbing agony that permeated his entire being. His front legs, once pillars of power, began to atrophy from disuse, no longer able to reliably support his weight. Hunting, the very essence of his survival, became an impossibility. He could only manage to lap at a little dew or find the occasional puddle of rainwater. Yet a faint glimmer of hope, a primal urge to survive, still flickered within him. With agonizing slowness, he would drag himself through the dry grass, his senses straining to detect the faintest scent of a rodent or the forgotten scraps of a kill. Gradually, the lower part of his injured foot became completely necrotic, the dead tissue almost detaching, leaving only a raw, exposed thigh close to his body. The gruesome sight was a constant, heartbreaking reminder of his ravaged state. However, the deep-seated survival instinct, the will to live ingrained over a lifetime, forced the lion to try and use his remaining 3 legs to propel himself forward, a testament to his incredible resilience. It was the peak of the heat wave, the grasslands baking under a merciless sun, the already dry landscape turning even more arid and unforgiving. That day, a local man named Quito was driving home along a dusty track. His attention was caught by a limping figure in the distance, its movement slow and labored. Curious and concerned, Quito stopped his vehicle, got out, and cautiously approached, maintaining a safe distance. He was shocked by the sight that greeted him. The old lion's leg was in a horrific state, almost completely detached, with dried blood caked onto his matted, ragged fur. A wave of understanding washed over Quito. The magnificent creature was slowly dying, and would not survive without intervention. Immediately, his hand reached for his phone, and he called the Kenyan Wildlife Reserve, his voice urgent as he reported the heartbreaking situation. The reserve staff, their voices calm and professional, asked Quito to leave the area, promising to dispatch a team within the hour. But compassion, a deep-seated empathy for the suffering animal, kept him from simply driving away. Quito opened the trunk of his car and took out some fresh meat he had just bought in town, intending it for his own meal. With utmost caution, he placed the offering in front of the lion, his eyes fixed on the animal's reaction. The old lion was almost lifeless, his once proud head barely lifting, only a weak sniff betraying a flicker of awareness. Then, with a slow, agonizing effort, he used his weakened teeth to gnaw at a small piece of the meat. In his tired eyes, Quito saw a glimmer of gratitude mixed with profound exhaustion. Unable to bear the thought of leaving the lion without more, Quito placed another small piece of meat nearby, hoping to provide a little more sustenance in his final hours. Seeing that time was indeed running out and the light beginning to fade, Quito was forced to get back into his car and drive home, his heart heavy with concern. The old lion, left alone once more, managed to eat every last scrap of the offered meat, then let out a long, weary sigh and collapsed onto the parched earth. Exactly 1 hour later, the rumble of a conservation ranger truck broke the silence of the savannah. 3 figures emerged. Michael, the experienced team leader, along with 2 dedicated rangers, Hamisi and Juma. The 3 of them immediately recognized the gaunt creature lying before them, the once majestic male lion who had ruled the savannah with power and grace for the past decade. Unexpectedly, the harsh realities of life in the wild had reduced him to this exhausted, broken state. Michael, his movements calm and deliberate, got out of the vehicle first, gently approaching the fallen king. The old lion, surprisingly, did not display any aggression, his weary eyes seeming to hold a flicker of understanding, perhaps sensing that the human before him meant no harm. Hamisi and Juma quickly prepared their medical tools, ready to provide whatever assistance they could. Michael, drawing upon his extensive experience with wildlife, continued to approach slowly, his voice a low, warm murmur, reassuring the distressed animal. The lion's breathing was shallow and labored, but his eyes softened slightly in the presence of a friendly human, a spark of trust igniting in their depths. Hamisi swiftly administered an injection of health supplements, a concentrated dose of vital nutrients to try and give the old lion's failing body a fighting chance. The medicine seemed to have a temporary effect, easing his pain and bringing a slight return of alertness to his weary eyes. When the lion appeared less stressed and more responsive, the three rangers, working together with careful precision, gently lifted his weakened body onto the back of the truck. They laid him carefully on a thick, soft cloth, ensuring his injured leg was supported. The journey back to the rescue center was not too far, but they drove slowly and deliberately, avoiding any sudden bumps that might cause the lion further pain. Upon their arrival at the reserve, the dedicated medical staff immediately began a comprehensive examination. A wave of heartbreak washed over everyone as they witnessed the extent of the old lion's injuries. The front leg was almost entirely necrotic, a gruesome sight with only the upper thigh remaining. The veterinarian, after a careful assessment, concluded that, fortunately, the necrosis had stopped and had not spread further up his body. However, the male lion's advanced age and severely declining health presented a significant challenge. After much deliberation and heartfelt discussion, the management board made a difficult decision. They would not release him back into the wild. The harsh realities of the savannah would undoubtedly lead to his swift demise. Instead, they resolved to provide him with a safe haven, a place where he could live out his final days with dedicated care and without the constant struggle for survival. At the rescue center, the old lion was placed in a spacious, cool, covered enclosure, a sanctuary, away from the harsh elements. For the first day, he barely moved, his massive body lying still, his eyes mostly closed, a picture of utter exhaustion. The compassionate sanctuary staff took turns keeping watch over him, ensuring he had access to fresh water and small, easily digestible meals. The remnants of his amputated leg were carefully bandaged, and slowly, miraculously, the wound began to dry and show signs of healing. A few weeks passed, and a subtle but significant change began to occur. The old lion started to regain a small measure of his former vitality. He accepted the fresh meals offered by the staff, albeit with a slow and deliberate movement. The sad, defeated expression that had clouded his eyes gradually gave way to a peaceful look, a sense of calm settling over him as he seemed to understand. He was finally safe. Word of the majestic old lion at the reserve began to spread among visitors. People were often moved by his extraordinary story of survival against all odds. Children, wide-eyed with wonder, loved to gaze upon his silver-tinged mane, a rare and poignant sign of great age and a life lived fully. Michael, the team leader, always reminded the reserve staff to treat the old lion with the respect his glorious past deserved. He encouraged everyone to care for him as a proud symbol of the wild, a testament to the enduring spirit of the savannah. Hamisi and Juma also often visited the lion, their voices gentle as they spoke words of encouragement, as if sensing that the old king understood their heartfelt sentiments. And so, in the quiet sanctuary of the Kenyan Nature Reserve, the once formidable male lion of the savannah gradually grew accustomed to the presence of humans, his initial wariness fading into a quiet acceptance. Occasionally, a soft, rumbling roar would escape his chest, a gentle echo of his powerful past, as if wanting to share the glorious stories of his reign. Anyone who witnessed this gentle giant in his twilight years felt a profound sense of awe and admiration for his incredible resilience, his enduring spirit. And so, under the watchful protection of those who had offered him refuge, the old lion enjoyed his final days in peace and dignity, becoming a living legend, a cherished symbol in the very heart of the savannah he had once ruled.